Okay. Well, up next, we've got Danny Jenkins from ThreatLocker. Will, you're a client.
Yes.
Just real quick, what would you say about them?
I would say it's awesome. They have great support. They are there for us when we need. If we have any questions, schedule a meeting, and boom, they're there. If you have to contact support, they're really quick. ThreatLocker is in our base package now.
It is.
So
Okay.
we do not sell a managed services package without ThreatLocker in it.
Okay, very cool. Well, I know Danny's taking sort of a controversial approach to cybersecurity, and I'll let him tell it better because he can tell it better than I can. So let's turn it over to Danny.
Thank you, Robin, and thank you, Will. The world is changing, and I don't just mean we're stuck at home with masks on and locked in a closet. I mean the world is changing from a technology point of view. Wrong one. Before 2004, I had never in my life seen a virus or a piece of malware that costs money to recover from, other than paying your IT guy to remove it. Prior to 2004, the biggest issue I ever encountered with malware was somebody getting some inappropriate pop-ups on their computer or their CPU maxing out or love bug sending emails and just spreading for the hell of it. In 2004, I was called to somebody's house to ask to help them recover from a €900 phone bill. And the lady's brother had used her computer to look at some adult sites, downloaded a piece of malware that then went out to the internet every night and dialed one of those premium rate numbers to download content by itself, and €900 was the expense of it. Fast forward to 2014, ransomware is now commonplace, or was commonplace even back then. And I started seeing insurance companies, banks, hospitals constantly being crippled by some guy sitting in Ukraine or North Korea demanding $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 in ransom to get their data back. And this is when we really saw the change in what attackers are willing to do and what it actually means to a business when they get ransomware. Fast forward on again, the demands are increasing. The values are increasing. It's not even news anymore when a local government agency gets taken down by ransomware. The most we hear about it is not on the news, is when we get an alert on our phone saying the 911 services are down because of ransomware. It doesn't make local news, it doesn't make national news. 5 years ago, that was really important. It's that commonplace. The reality is, chasing the threat is not working. The approach of installing an antivirus and hoping it's going to detect our threat, installing an EDR, installing a threat detection system, and hoping that it's going to stop today's latest threat is not working. Back in 1997, when I started working in IT, it was cool to have an antivirus. Nobody ever got viruses because we didn't even have an internet connection. If we wanted to install an antivirus, we'd go to PC World, we'd buy a floppy disk, we'd put it in our machine and wait 15 minutes and say, I'm cool, I've got an antivirus. There was no real value for it, but it seemed like a cool idea. Today, antivirus still isn't doing anything, only people are desperately paying for it and upgrading, hoping it will do the next best thing. The threat keeps changing. Last 2 weeks ago, we saw VirtualBox, where attackers are sending out pre-compiled virtual machines, preloaded with remote access software, self-containing images that users can download. They open from a Word document, from an exploit. It opens on their machine. It runs inside your network. Bruce talked about port 3389 being open on the firewall. That is terrible. But if you're on the inside of the firewall, it doesn't matter because all of the ports are open. Before that, we've seen WannaCry, phishing attacks, Word documents, rubber duckies, various different types of malware and different ways that it's getting into your system. And the antivirus, the EDR solutions are trying to keep up. And they're detecting some of these threats, but they're essentially chasing them all the time. So if you've got the best solution, the best EDR, you're always at least 1 week behind the attackers. I want to show you a quick example of a very, very easy technique to steal your data from your computer without even installing malware. This is sometimes referred to as fileless malware. This here is a rubber ducky. Essentially, it's a micro keyboard built into what looks like a USB drive. It won't be blocked by any USB storage solutions. And as of yesterday, I tested this on probably 5, 6 antiviruses and some of the biggest EDR solutions. And none of them stopped this one drive plugging into a computer without any interaction from a user, uploading their files to Google Drive. So I'm just going to share my screen here. And you can see here, first of all, I've got a Google bucket, a public bucket on the internet. And I've got my laptop sitting here. And this is where my internet dies. And I've got no files in there. I have ThreatLocker installed on this machine in a monitoring-only period so we can see what happens. And I'm essentially going to touch no keys on the keyboard. All I'm going to do is insert this USB device. This USB device could look like a normal charging cable. It could look like a USB device. It could look like any kind of USB dongle. You'll notice when I plugged that in, it popped up and some things happened on the screen and nothing else happened. I could have minimized that if I wanted to hide it, but I think it looks better when you can see what's going on. What actually happened in the background is it took every document from my storage and it uploaded them to my Google Drive here, everything from my Documents folder. I am not a domain admin on this machine. The same can apply if I'm on a network, if I want to talk to a file server. Grab that data, upload it to the internet. Like I said, I tested numerous antiviruses, the best EDR solutions, and none of them detected this. And the reason why is because this isn't malware. This isn't something bad. This is a series of keystrokes on your computer that uploaded the data. But it doesn't matter whether it's a series of keystrokes, whether it's a macro in a Word document, whether it's a vulnerability in Zoom. It doesn't matter how it happens. I just use the legitimate tool to upload the data from this machine to the internet without any user having to touch anything. Now, if you think about this, if you have a client in healthcare and they have a computer on the front desk in a car dealership, it's very easy for someone to come in and plug that in and take, encrypt, or copy data on a machine that's essentially available for them to get access to. Now, this didn't need to happen. Just as all of the other vulnerabilities didn't need to happen, there are ways we can stop this, and we don't have to rely on our antivirus hopefully detecting the latest threat. First of all, if I pull this up in the ThreatLocker audit here, which we have in monitor mode, you'll see here that all of these items on the right say that these were ring-fenced. They weren't blocked because of the monitoring mode, and you'll see that all of these documents were accessed, and not only accessed, but accessed in a right fashion by PowerShell. Well, first of all, those documents, PowerShell did not need to access that data. There is no legitimate business reason for PowerShell to access that data, ever. So if you can stop PowerShell accessing the data, the user does, but PowerShell doesn't, then you can prevent PowerShell encrypting those files or copying those files up to the internet. The other thing that didn't need to happen is you'll notice here in the log as well that there's an IP address being connected to. Again, PowerShell very seldom needs access to the internet. And if it does need access to the internet, it's probably just to your RMM or some of your tools. If we can stop applications from doing things they can't do, then we can massively reduce our surface area of attack. I'm just going to demonstrate one other test here. I'm going to turn off monitor mode. I'm going to show you the exact same behavior. And I'll give that 60 seconds to deploy. If we can stop the application accessing the internet, if we can stop it accessing our files when it doesn't need to, we can essentially stop these types of attack. If I do the same thing, the same command runs on my machine. The keystrokes are still passed. PowerShell is launched in the background. But when we look at the same items in the audit, we'll see this time the items are red. So first of all, by ring-fencing this application, we were able to say not only can PowerShell not read my data, but it can't upload my data to the internet. So if the first layer of defense fails, the second layer doesn't. And I'll just jump back to my slide now. don't just think about ransomware. It's very easy to get scared about ransomware as an MSP because when your clients know they've got ransomware, when they get ransomware, they know they've got ransomware. They call you, they yell, there's fear. You're stuck for hours, if not days, trying to recover from a backup, hoping that that backup didn't get encrypted. But there are lots of other threats out there. Data theft is just as prominent now as it ever was, and it's just as prominent as ransomware. Unfortunately, data theft doesn't often get headlines. The clients don't scream because quite often they don't even know it happened. Their customers' credit card details, their bank accounts, client list, intellectual property is all stolen without the client even knowing. The best way we can stop these types of attacks, the best way to stop zero-day attacks when the antivirus just doesn't know how it behaves, is to not let the software run at all. Because every time something does run on your computer, that application has access to everything that you have access to. So how does antivirus stop attacks now? Typically, it uses definitions. It looks for bad stuff. And if that doesn't work, it uses algorithms, heuristics, artificial intelligence. But essentially, what it's trying to do is it's trying to determine what is good and what is bad. The problem is malware is nothing other than software that's intended for bad purposes. What is the difference between Dropbox and a piece of bad software that steals your data and uploads it to the internet? They're both exactly, if you look at the code of those applications, they're almost identical. You can sign malware, and it can still run under many antiviruses. The same applies with remote support versus remote hacking. This is happening very, very frequently, and we're seeing it more and more often, where MSPs, you guys are being impersonated, and people are sending your clients links to a TeamViewer session or a GoToAssist session saying, I can't get on your machine because my Screen Connect server's down. Can you click on this TeamViewer link? The client opens that TeamViewer link not knowing there's anything wrong with it because as far as they're concerned, it came from your email address or at least an email address that looks like yours. It's TeamViewer. The antivirus doesn't care about TeamViewer. And if TeamViewer is allowed to run on your machine, there's nothing you can do to stop that. We have seen so many cases of this with new MSPs that are signing up for ThreatLocker recently. One of them found out because the client called them up, yelling at them that, why are you looking at my saved passwords? Someone had literally connected onto her machine using TeamViewer as this person, opened up the saved password history in the browser, and was looking at the banking passwords and everything in front of her eyes. And she didn't for 1 minute think this isn't the MSP. Zoom. Zoom has done 5, 6, 7 patches in the last 6 weeks, 3 months since this whole COVID mess began. The first one fixed the most obvious vulnerabilities where you could run PowerShell commands from Zoom. You could steal people's credentials. You could send malware without any prompt for a warning. But even after all of these patches, and we have people working from home, you can still send an executable over Zoom. In 2001, Microsoft blocked executables being sent over email. We now have half the country working at home using Zoom, Teams, Slack, all of these tools, and all of these tools still allow you to send executables. I know when I receive that invoice.exe there in that message that I'm not opening this invoice.exe. I know what an exe is, but unfortunately not all users do. So we have all of these tools out there. We've lost the perimeter. I mean, at this stage especially, the perimeter's been disappearing for the last decade, but now it's completely gone at this stage. Everybody's working from home on untrusted networks. We don't have web security. And now a user is able to transmit a file over a secure session in Zoom. Teams is the same. Slack is the same. All of these remote tools allow us to collaborate and receive data that doesn't go through our traditional scanning techniques. Writing policies is great. We're in the middle of a SOC 2 audit. If anyone ever seen a password policy, it's like 2 pages long. I don't even know what it says. It says you have to use a really strong password. But without a control, it's a waste of paper. Because I can tell people, use secure passwords. You must have 10 characters, 14 characters, 20 characters. Use special characters. But if the system doesn't enforce it, they're not going to do it. Use controls and don't rely on threat detection. Use application whitelisting to block untrusted software from running. Whether that untrusted software is TeamViewer, Dropbox, or Google Chrome extension, use controls and don't rely on policy because users will not read the policy. Looking for threats is just not enough. You're not going to be able to detect every single threat. I think I said this already. There is no silver bullet for security. But every time you do run something on your computer, whether that application is Angry Birds, PowerShell, Microsoft Office, that application has access to everything that you do as a local user. You do not have to be a domain admin to encrypt your entire file server, to copy that data, and you can't uncopy data and get it back once it's gone out there. The better approach is to use default deny. Now, this zero trust approach, and it has been used in the enterprise for a long time. It's been used in federal government and big banking for a long time. The concept is very simple. Instead of trying to look for bad stuff, you block everything, and then you just allow what you need. It sounds terrifying at first. ThreatLocker makes this technology very, very easy. And it's not just about making life hard. It's also about creating opportunities. When you engage with your customers and you talk to them and you say that we're going to implement these technologies, you're building a trust with your clients. You're building a relationship where they are not just using your services, but relying on you to make sure that they are not making mistakes that harms their business. Don't just control what can run, though. Control what it can do. You saw with the ring fencing, just by ring fencing PowerShell, PowerShell could not access my documents and could not upload my files to the internet. But ring fence other applications. Go back to last November. Microsoft released a fix, a patch for Internet Explorer that stopped Internet Explorer running PowerShell commands directly on your computer. The problem is, the day they released that patch, the attackers started going after that attack. The day they announced it, the viruses started coming out. We saw 30,000 PowerShell commands blocked from Internet Explorer 2 months preceding that. It's not just Internet Explorer or PowerShell. Microsoft Office, it needs to run. It's a good application. We get it. You use it in the business. But does it really need to call PowerShell or RegServe or RunDLL or any of those other tools? Know what's happening in your environment. This is one of the features that the customers really love, the end customers really love about ThreatLocker. You guys are essentially doctors. You're prescribing security to your clients. You're encouraging them to be better and be secure. But sometimes it's like banging your head against the wall because they don't want to spend money. They don't want restrictions. But one thing they do like is visibility on what's going in their environment. One of the features of ThreatLocker is not only can you see every application that's being accessed in your environment, you can see every document that's being accessed in your environment. So if you have clients who are concerned about insider threats, about their employees stealing data, uploading them to web, you can see what did they do to that data, who changed it, who deleted it, who copied it to USB drives, was it encrypted, did they upload it into a web browser? All of this information is logged in a central audit where they can see all this, and you can see all this, and you can create reports for them. By knowing what's happening in your environment, it gives you the ability to make better decisions on what should be happening. And one of the first things that happen when you deploy ThreatLocker is we learn what is happening in your environment, what applications you run, what files are accessed, and we automatically build policies out for you so you don't have to manually create those policies. You just have to review them afterwards. A major cyber attack at the MSP level is the fastest way to lose your business in one day. If your systems get breached, if your Automate servers or Kaseya RMMs get breached and malware is pushed out to all of your clients, you don't get a second chance at that. Your reputation is going to be destroyed. If this happens to one client, it's damaging on your reputation. Because just like the MSPs talk to each other, so do businesses, so do local businesses. They talk to each other. I use these guys, but I got ransomware. I use these guys, but my data was stolen. And it's not good enough to say, we have good backups. It's not good enough to say we have off-site backups and cloud backups. Backups are not cybersecurity. This is an IT function that's been around before cybersecurity was even a word, and it should be part of any MSP's function. You should have them, but you shouldn't rely on them. If you are restoring from your backups, if you are recovering from a loss, a ransomware attack, a cyber attack from backups, you have failed your client, or your client has failed themselves in that there is insufficient security in their environments. Backups will not get your data back when somebody steals it. They will not recover losses when your customer's financial details are stolen. Now, I'm a little bit ahead on time, so I'm going to actually spend a little bit of time showing you a bit more ThreatLocker if it's okay. But just one thing I'd like to say before that is, if you're interested in ThreatLocker, we have a couple of kits we're offering out there, some Cyber Hero kits and Cyber Hero test kits. And sign up for a trial or a demo. First 50 people that sign up for a trial and try ThreatLocker and lock it down and embrace zero trust, we're going to send out Cyber Hero kits. They include all sorts of cool stuff like T-shirts and cups and mugs and different things like that. But they also include some rubber duckies with lots of pre-built scripts where you can demonstrate to your clients the weaknesses in their security. So you're not just saying to them. You can show them, look, when I plug this into your computer, look what it's doing. And they're not actually going to copy the data. They're going to show them the data they can copy and give them examples. But we're going to pre-define those scripts with pre-built scripts that you can go into your clients and you can show them and you can teach them why security is so important. Now, I'm a little bit ahead on time, so what I'd like to use this time for is just to show you some of the simplicity around ThreatLocker, if that's okay. So as an MSP, if you want to benefit from zero trust, it doesn't have to be scary. If you sign up for ThreatLocker, we literally had an MSP with 2,000 seats deploy at the end of a demo. They went into their Automate system, they pushed out all the seats, and a week later they went in and locked down most of those clients. And it looked like this. They essentially downloaded an agent, imported the script straight into Automate. Automate, Kaseya, SolarWinds, Synco, all of these integrate directly into our API so you don't have to manually create your clients. Deployed the client, it will start learning of what's happening in your environment, cataloging all of the EXEs, all of the DLLs, all of the script files that run, and it will automatically build those policies for you. So you can go in here a week later and you can say, show me what's running in my environment. It will suggest ring fencing policies. So it will suggest policies like this one here that we just demonstrated. PowerShell should not be able to access the internet, or my files, or BitLocker, because BitLocker is a little bit scary too. These are all internal applications that can be weaponized against you. If you take applications like BitLocker, again, this is not malware. If an attacker gets on your machine and enables it, puts in a private key, and you don't have that key, you can't get your data back. Preventing that being called from PowerShell is pretty important, unless you want to call it, and then limiting it to certain users is a great idea. Things like making sure Microsoft Office can't call PowerShell is very, very simple. Limiting application access to your files. So if you do use Internet Explorer, and you shouldn't, if you can shut it down, please do. If your clients have limited needs for applications like Internet Explorer, you can control exactly what Internet Explorer can access. So if it is compromised, it can't encrypt or access your files. It can't go out to any websites except the ones you've said, that 1949 HVAC system that still needs Internet Explorer. If you ring fence these applications, it's going to massively help reduce your overhead. Your risk surface area of attack. Remember, everything on your system, every time you run an application, that application can be weaponized and can be used against you. So, of course, the best thing to do is block the application from running in the first place. But if you can't, if you limit what it can do, keep it in its lane, that is the best way to approach this. Other really useful factors is file shares. One of the most targeted areas by attackers. You have a public file share. You probably have too many permissions on the file share as it is. But with ThreatLocker, you can easily limit what file shares can access. You can limit what applications can access the share, not just which users. So if a user accidentally downloads an exe, and then you permit that using the application whitelisting by mistake, and you don't ring fence it, it still can't access your files because you can set policies around your file shares to stop files being encrypted. Other controls, like limiting access to external storage. It's not just rubber duckies that are a threat. People plugging in USB drives, bringing in unauthorized content, copying in unauthorized content to their drive. With ThreatLocker's policy controls, you can actually put policies in place to limit and stop these applications from running and drives being used. And when something is blocked, you're going to get notified. It's going to give you a message saying, ThreatLocker's blocked this. I think I blocked something earlier on today. And your customer can very, very easily hit request permission, and you can very, very easily approve that application on a customer level, at an MSP level, at an individual computer level for a set period of time with a single click.